So Unit 1 Biology for AAQ, and this video is about homeostasis. What's that then, Dave? Well, I'll tell you. So homeostasis, our bodies need a stable internal environment. And that basically means that there's things in our body which need to stay the same or very, very close to the same all of the time. And what are we talking about? We're talking about blood sugar level, blood pressure, fluid levels, gas concentration. I think it should be on the list as temperature as well, but it's not on our specification for some reason. These are the ones that we need to explain, yes? So these things need to stay the same. There are processes in our bodies that regulate the value of these things. So there's things happening in our body which keep our blood sugar level the same, which keep our blood pressure the same. And these things involve negative feedback loops. And in this video, we're going to talk about these negative feedback loops which keep these things the same. If you look on the diagram on the right, those are the things that we need to know. And inside this young man here, things need to be around a certain level, which is the optimal level, the best level, the optimal level. And if the value of these things is too high, that's not okay. If it's too low, that's not okay. And something happens to bring it back to the optimal level, and that's the feedback loop. Let's start with blood sugar, and blood sugar is glucose, and there is glucose in our blood, so it's called blood sugar. And the level of glucose in our blood should be close to a certain value, yes, an optimum value, okay, or optimal value, doesn't matter. Now, if you have very high blood sugar, that can be very bad for your health, okay? And if you have very low blood sugar, that can also be very bad for your health. So our body, there's things happening in our body which keeps the amount of blood sugar about the same all of the time. And the biggest organ involved in that is the pancreas. Okay, if your blood sugar is too high, then your pancreas releases a hormone. I'm going to spend a whole video talking about the endocrine system and hormones, but it releases a hormone called insulin, which I'm sure you've heard of. And what insulin does is it tells your cells to take in glucose and to store it as glycogen. If your blood sugar is too low, then the pancreas releases another hormone called glucagon. And glucagon tells the liver to convert glycogen into glucose and release it into the blood. So basically, if it's too high, then something happens to make it smaller, which is the insulin. And if it's too low, then something happens to make it bigger, and that is glucagon. And this is the negative feedback loop. Okay, this is an example of a negative feedback loop. This diagram here, you should know this diagram. We're going to apply this diagram to all the things that we need to know about homeostasis. You've got a stimulus, something happens. There are sensors involved which sense the change in whatever. There is a control. Yes, something decides that something should happen as a result of this, and then effectors make it happen. Okay, the stimulus, a deviation from the optimum value. Sensor, the level is monitored and the deviation is detected. A signal is sent to correct the deviation, and then the deviation is reduced. In the case of blood sugar, if you've just eaten a huge Mars bar, yeah, loads of sugar, then your blood sugar will change after a meal or after exercise, so that's the deviation. And there are cells in the pancreas, there are receptors in the pancreas which detect the change, okay? And then they will release insulin or glucagon as needed. And then what happens is that the cells take in more glucose, or the liver releases more glucose. Okay, now the ones we need to know, as I said, blood sugar levels. I've talked enough about that. Blood pressure, body fluids, and gas concentration. Let's talk about the other three now. So, blood pressure. The pressure of the blood in our arteries should be about the same all of the time. It should remain within a stable and quite a narrow range. If it's too high, which is hypertension, that can actually damage your blood vessels. If it's too low, then your cells aren't going to get enough of the stuff that they need from the blood. So that's hypotension, and that can be very dangerous. So your blood pressure should be about the same all of the time. Now, the receptors, the things which detect your blood pressure, okay, in a couple of parts of your body, but basically the main ones are near the aorta, which is the big vessel, the big artery which leaves the heart. So they are called baro or baroreceptors. Baro means pressure. A barometer measures pressure, doesn't it? So these baroreceptors measure the pressure of the blood leaving the heart, and they send signals to a part of the brain that controls the heart rate. It controls the heart rate, how fast the heart is beating, and it also controls how wide your arteries are as well, your major arteries. And that will control the blood pressure. Yes? The part of the brain that controls the blood pressure, it's in part of the brain called the medulla oblongata, which is in the brain stem. See that thing which actually goes into the brain stem, okay? And that receives the information from the baroreceptors, and it sends signals to the heart and to blood vessels to change what as needed, okay? And these signals are sent via the nervous system, and I'm going to do a whole video about the nervous system, okay? So it's not hormones this time, it's the nervous system. Signals are also sent to the kidneys to get rid of, to excrete, or to retain more or less water, because that will have an effect on blood pressure as well. Although I believe that's actually a hormone. That's ADH which does that. So if the blood pressure is too high, then the signal is slow down the heart rate and dilate the blood vessels, make the blood vessels a little bit wider. Send a signal to the kidneys to get rid of more water, to excrete more fluid. If the blood pressure is too low, then increase the heart rate, constrict the blood vessels, make them more narrow, and send a signal to the kidneys to retain more fluid. Don't get rid of as much water. And here's our diagram again. So the stimulus is the blood pressure is too high or low. The baroreceptors near the main aorta are monitoring blood pressure. This part of the brain, the cardiovascular control center, which is in the medulla oblongata, yes, that controls what's happening, and that sends the signals to the heart and to the arteries and to the kidneys, which should make things closer to the optimum value again. Osmoregulation. So this is about the balance between water and the stuff dissolved in the water. Yeah, the ions dissolved in the water. Okay. Basically, in our extracellular fluid, which is the fluid outside of our cells, yes, there is stuff dissolved in it. Now, this stuff can't be too concentrated. If it was too concentrated, if there was too much stuff dissolved in it, then what would happen is that the water inside our cells would leave the cell, and the cell would become all floppy like this. Yes? I think the word is plasmalized. I don't think you need to know that. Okay? If there wasn't enough stuff dissolved in the liquid outside our cells, then what would happen is that water would enter the the cell would become much bigger and very tight. We say it becomes turgid, and it may actually explode. It may be damaged. So we want the concentration inside and outside our cells to be the same. And that way our cells don't lose too much water and they don't gain too much water by osmosis. Now, there are specialized neurons called osmoreceptors, and they're in the hypothalamus, which is in your brain, another part of the brain, the hypothalamus. And they monitor the concentration of water and ions in the blood. Okay, the hypothalamus. If the water level is too low, then the hypothalamus sends signals to the pituitary gland, which is basically very, very close to the hypothalamus. And then the pituitary gland releases more of this hormone called ADH, antidiuretic hormone, ADH. And this tells the kidneys to retain more water. Yes? If the water level is too high, then the hypothalamus sends signals to the pituitary gland to release less ADH, and that tells the kidneys to release more water. Yes? So the amount of water that the kidneys is releasing is controlled by this hormone called ADH, which is released by the pituitary gland when it's told to by the hypothalamus. Do a little diagram of that, yeah? So basically, if you've got too much water in your blood, yeah, then when you go to the loo and have a wee, then you're looking at the diagram on the right. Your wee is not very concentrated. Yes? If you've not got enough water in your blood, then when you go for a wee, your urine is much more concentrated because your kidneys have been told not to get rid of as much water. Here's our diagram. So stimulus, a change in the concentration of salts. For example, after exercise, if you've done a lot of exercise and you've done a lot of sweating, yes, you've lost a lot of water. The sensors are the osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus, and then the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland to release more or less ADH, this hormone, and then the effector is the kidneys. They retain or release more water from the blood, and hopefully that will get things, the salt concentration, back to where it's supposed to be. I mean, do you know when you do exercise and, you know, you've been to the gym and then you buy a bottle of like Lucozade or something and they say it's isotonic? And that means that the concentration of stuff dissolved in it is going to match what should be in your body. And so it's not going to change the salt concentration in your body too much. Gas concentration. So we're talking oxygen and carbon dioxide. The amount dissolved in your blood should stay within certain limits. Okay. Let's talk about carbon dioxide. If you've got too much carbon dioxide in your blood, then that can change the pH of the blood to dangerous levels. It becomes carbonic acid. Okay. Excuse me. If oxygen levels are too low, then our cells may not get enough of the oxygen that they need. So it's very important that the amount of carbon dioxide, the amount of oxygen in our blood stays about the same all the time. So receptors in the medulla oblongata. Oh, we've been there before. We know where that is, in the brain stem. And they monitor the levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. And they do that by monitoring the pH of the blood. Yes? If your blood is a little bit too acidic, that means there's too much carbon dioxide. If it's less acidic than it should be, if it's a little bit alkaline, then that tells us that there's not enough carbon dioxide. So, chemical receptors in the medulla oblongata and near the heart monitor the pH of the blood. And how does it change the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide? Well, what it does is it sends signals to the diaphragm muscle. Now look at this fantastic animation here from Wiki, and the diaphragm muscle basically controls your breathing. Yes? And if you need to get rid of more carbon dioxide, then you will breathe faster and deeper. Yeah? And that will cause the body to get rid of more carbon dioxide and to take in more oxygen. So they send signals to the diaphragm, and that changes the rate of breathing and the depth of breathing as well. Here's our wonderful diagram again. So the stimulus, let's say change in carbon dioxide level, for example, during exercise because you do more respiration. pH levels are monitored by receptors in the medulla oblongata, in the brain stem. The medulla oblongata sends signals to the diaphragm to adjust the breathing rate and depth. And then the change in the breathing rate and depth will change the amount of carbon dioxide released in breathing, and that will change the level of carbon dioxide in the blood. So, if you get a question on one of these, imagine you might get a question, and it says for one of the things listed below. So it might be blood sugar, it might be blood pressure, body fluids, gas concentration, and you'll be asked to describe how our bodies regulate it. And the best way of doing that is by using that diagram there. Say what the stimulus is, say what the sensors are, say what the control is, say what the effectors are. Okay? And also use these keywords as well as the ones in the diagram. Say what an optimum value means, say what negative feedback means, and say what homeostasis means. Okay? And this will be your 6-mark question. And I think I've given you enough information to get 6 marks if any of those come up.